At Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary in Montana, it was just past dawn when a call came in. Another wildlife emergency. A delivery driver had spotted a tiny, trembling bobcat cub curled in the weeds by a deserted stretch of highway. No one could have guessed that this fragile creature carried a remarkable secret. They named her Willow, for the way her little body bent like a twig in the wind, but refused to break. Bailey, the sanctuary's elderly golden retriever, had been declining. For weeks, he wouldn't eat. He barely moved from his bed in the corner of the common room. Nothing. No treatment or affection seemed to help, until Willow climbed onto his back. She pressed her tiny paws into Bailey's fur. From that moment, Willow was more than a rescue. She was the sanctuary's smallest healer. What happened next defied everything wildlife experts thought they knew about healing, about interspecies bonds, and the mysterious power of a gentle touch. Before we begin, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story. The early October morning air was sharp against Sarah's worn jacket as she drove the winding dirt road leading to Whispering Pines. For 20 years, this sprawling refuge deep in the Montana wilderness had been her life's work, a testament to her belief in the sacredness of all creatures. The rising sun cast long shadows through the towering pines, painting the dew-laced meadows in hues of rose and gold. Usually this beauty brought her peace, but today, a quiet dread weighed heavy in her chest. Bailey, her beloved retriever and the sanctuary's unofficial greeter, was fading. The radio crackled to life, snapping her from her thoughts. "Sarah, you there? Got a report from a delivery driver, Henderson's his name. Says he spotted a tiny bobcat cub near Highway 89, mile marker 112. It's alive, but barely." Sarah's heart clenched. Another life on the edge. "Understood, Martha. I'm on my way. Patch me through to Henderson if you can." Mark Olson, the sanctuary's lead vet and Sarah's steadfast partner for the past 10 years, was already prepping the animal ambulance when she arrived. His normally cheerful face was lined with worry, not just for the cub, but for Bailey, lying motionless in his orthopedic bed in the common room. Bailey had been the sanctuary's soul. Found as a stray with a broken leg and an indomitable will, he had become a calming presence for frightened rescues. He had an uncanny gift for sensing distress, offering comfort to deer, raccoons, even wary raptors. But age had taken its toll. Arthritis stiffened his limbs, and a mysterious illness was draining his strength. His once glossy coat had dulled, and his eyes were clouded with pain. "Morning, Sarah," Mark greeted quietly. "Any news on the cub? Just that it's alone and weak. Henderson's waiting. Let's hope we're not too late." She glanced toward Bailey. Old Jed, a longtime volunteer with a heart as wide as the sky, was gently stroking the retriever's head. Bailey didn't stir. The drive to Highway 89 was quiet and tense. Sarah replayed Henderson's words. "Tiny, trembling, just watching me." She pictured the cold, the fear, the loneliness, feelings she knew too well, feelings that had driven her to build Whispering Pines. They found Henderson, a big man with kind eyes, pacing by his truck. He pointed to a patch of weeds just off the road, right there. "Poor thing's been here about an hour, didn't see its mama. I didn't want to leave it, but I didn't want to scare it either." Mark moved first, calm and slow. Sarah followed, scanning for any sign of life. Then, a flicker. A tiny ear twitched. Mark knelt and gently parted the weeds. Curled in a tight ball no bigger than a house cat was a bobcat cub. Its fur bristled with cold and fear, but its luminous green eyes held a strange, timeless stillness. "She's freezing," Mark murmured. He wrapped her in a thick blanket, his hands gentle but sure. The cub hissed softly, but then leaned into the warmth, her small body trembling like a leaf in the wind. "We'll call her Willow," Sarah said softly, "for the way she bends, but doesn't break." Back at the sanctuary, the exam room fell quiet. Willow was dangerously cold and dehydrated. Mark worked steadily, fluids, warmth, careful monitoring. Sarah stood close, heart aching for the vulnerable creature. Most wild bobcats fought every touch, But Willow was different. As her body warmed, a strange sound emerged. At first, Sarah thought it was a tremor, but then she realized it was a purr. Not like a house cat's soft hum, but a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to travel through the room. And then came the kneading, those tiny paws moving in a low, steady rhythm, pressing and releasing as if working invisible dough. "Well, I'll be," Mark muttered. "Never seen a bobcat this calm. Not right away. Not like this." "There's something about her," Sarah whispered. "Something special." Days passed. Willow grew stronger. She took her formula eagerly, her green eyes always alert. She purred constantly, and the kneading continued. She kneaded her blankets, soft toys, even the hands of anyone brave enough to offer one. Always gentle, always rhythmic. Staff and volunteers began to linger near her enclosure just to feel the calm she brought. Her presence became almost meditative, her purr a quiet balm in the busy sanctuary. Meanwhile, Bailey declined further. He stopped eating, stopped responding. Vets were tumped. Medications failed. His spark was gone. He barely noticed Sarah or Mark anymore. His bed became a place of silent mourning. Sarah spent hours at his side. So did Jed, who whispered stories into Bailey's ear and gently massaged his stiff joints. But nothing helped. "He's giving up," Mark said one night. "We've done all we can. It may be time to let him go." Sarah felt like her heart cracked. She nodded, but her voice was barely a whisper. "Not yet. Please, just a little longer." It was a cool Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Willow's arrival. The sanctuary bustled with the usual rhythm, feeding, cleaning, tending. Willow, now in a transitional enclosure near the staff wing, had become a fixture of quiet comfort. Agnes, a gentle volunteer in her 60s, made her rounds with folded laundry in tow. She had a soft spot for Bailey, often sneaking him bits of roast beef when he could still eat. As she passed his room, she noticed the gate was ajar. "Oh dear," she murmured. Jed must have forgotten to latch it. She stepped inside, expecting to find Bailey as always, motionless. But what she saw stopped her cold. Curled beside the golden retriever was the tiny Bobcat Cub, Willow. Bailey, who hadn't moved in days, was lying on his side, his eyes open, if only a little. And Willow? She was perched on his back, tiny paws kneading, while her deep purr filled the room like a heartbeat. Agnes froze, heart pounding. A wild Bobcat Cub with a vulnerable dog? It was unthinkable. But then she saw Bailey's tail, a soft thump, then another. Tears welled in her eyes as she backed out of the room and rushed to find Sarah. "Sarah, you need to come quickly. It's Bailey and the Bobcat Cub." Panic surged through Sarah. She feared the worst. She imagined blood, panic, pain. But she and Mark raced down the hall, Jed trailing behind. They burst into Bailey's room. What they found made them stop in their tracks. Bailey and Willow, curled together, healing together. It was the very sight Agnes had once described. Willow, no bigger than a fluffy loaf of bread, was diligently massaging Bailey's back, her tiny body thrumming with that powerful purr. Bailey lay still, but there was a softness around his eyes, a relaxation in his posture that hadn't been there for so long. And then again, that small, almost imperceptible thump of his tail. Thump. Thump. "I don't believe it," Mark breathed, his veterinary mind struggling to process what he was seeing. How did she even get in here? Her enclosure's on the other side of the building. "The gate?" Jed mumbled, looking stricken. "I must not have secured it properly when I checked on him this morning. I'm so sorry, Sarah." But Sarah barely heard. "Him?" She was transfixed. There was no aggression, no fear, just a strange, focused gentleness emanating from the little bobcat. And Bailey, their fading Bailey, seemed to be responding. "Don't move," Sarah whispered, holding up a hand. "Let's just watch." For nearly half an hour they stood in reverent silence, witnessing something extraordinary. Willow moved with uncanny intuition, shifting her tiny frame, her paws working along Bailey's shoulders, then his neck, then down his spine. Bailey let out a soft sigh. Not a groan of pain, but something like contentment. His breathing grew a little deeper, a little less labored. At last, Willow seemed satisfied. She curled up beside him, nestled into his fur as if she'd always belonged there. Her purring softened into a gentle hum. Bailey's eyes fluttered closed, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he looked peaceful. Truly peaceful. From that day on, a quiet ritual began. No one quite knew how Willow managed it. Maybe the latch really was loose, or maybe she was more clever than anyone had imagined. But every morning, somehow, she made her way to Bailey's room, and every morning she climbed onto his bed and began her gentle massage. The sanctuary staff watched in quiet awe. Mark, ever the scientist, tried to rationalize it. Maybe the vibrations from her purring are acting like low-frequency therapy, he mused. Or the kneading helps stimulate blood flow, ease his joints. But Sarah believed it was more than that. She'd seen Willow's eyes, ancient, knowing. She'd felt the healing energy in her purr, and slowly, miraculously, Bailey began to change. The first real sign after those early tail thumps was his appetite. One morning, after Willow's massage and her usual curl-up, Jed offered Bailey a small piece of cooked chicken. For weeks, Bailey had turned his head from food, but this time his nose twitched. He sniffed. Then, astonishingly, he ate. Tears welled in Jed's eyes. He ate Sarah. He actually ate. And the victories kept coming. Bailey started to lift his head when someone entered. He drank more water. His dull fur began to show a shimmer of its old golden hue. The haunted look in his eyes faded, replaced by something gentler, something hopeful. Willow became his steady companion. She spent hours in his room, sometimes massaging, sometimes simply sleeping curled against his warm body. Bailey, in turn, drew strength from her. He'd often rest his heavy head near her tiny form, a soft sigh escaping his lips. Word of the Bobcat Cub and the ailing golden retriever spread through the sanctuary and beyond, to visitors, supporters, friends. Some were intrigued, others skeptical. All were deeply touched. Mrs. Albright, an elderly widow who volunteered, folding laundry and reading to injured owls, would often peer into Bailey's room. She'd lost her own dog the year before, and Bailey's decline had hurt her deeply. One afternoon, she watched Willow kneading Bailey's shoulder, her face intent. Bailey's eyes were closed in pure repose. "It's not just a massage. You." "No," Mrs. Albright said softly to Sarah, standing beside her. "That little creature. She's reminding him how to feel safe, to let go of pain. Animals know things we've forgotten." Sarah thought of Willow's story. Found alone, cold, terrified on the highway. She had every reason to mistrust, and yet from the moment she was shown warmth, she'd only offered her strange, gentle gift, as if she understood what it meant to be lost, and was determined to help others find their way back. And it wasn't just Bailey. Other animals responded to her too. A young fawn, recently rescued and cowering in a corner, went still when Willow passed by. She paused, let out her soft, resonant purr. The fawn's ears flicked, then turned forward. It took one cautious step toward her. Another time, a traumatized, red-tailed hawk, rescued from an illegal trap, hadn't moved in days. In quiet desperation, Sarah placed Willow's carrier near the enclosure. Willow settled calmly and began to purr. After an hour, the hawk ruffled its feathers, then hopped onto its perch and pecked at the food bowl. Mark remained pragmatic, attributing it all to coincidence or natural healing. But even he had to admit, there's definitely a behavioral phenomenon here. She's one of a kind. As autumn painted the Montana landscape in brilliant color, Bailey improved. He took short, wobbly walks in the yard, Willow trotting faithfully beside him. His appetite returned, and he gained weight. His golden coat shone again. The light returned to his eyes. Each morning, he waited for Willow. When she arrived, he'd greet her with a soft whine and a thump of his tail. He'd nudge her with his nose, guiding her to the places that hurt. She'd set to work, her healing purr vibrating through the room. And when she was done, she would press her forehead to his chest, and he would lean into her. Even the most stoic sanctuary workers were moved to tears. Visitors began requesting to see them, the healing bobcat and the miracle dog. Sarah managed it carefully, protecting their peace. Small groups, quiet observation. The story struck a deep chord, especially with older visitors, who understood the comfort animals could bring, and the sorrow of watching a beloved companion fade. One such visitor was Mr. Peterson, a retired veteran grieving the loss of his wife, fighting his own health battles. He watched Willow and Bailey for a long time one afternoon, his face solemn. "You know," he told Sarah, his voice thick with feeling, "that little cat's not just healing the dog. She's healing a part of all of us. She's a reminder that kindness comes in the most unexpected packages, and even when it all seems hopeless, there's still light." Winter came, blanketing the pines in white. Bailey, once near death, was transformed. He wasn't the spry retriever he'd once been, but he was happy, engaged. He resumed his role as the sanctuary's greeter, slower now but eager. Willow often danced ahead of him on their walks, circling back to nudge his leg. Willow had grown too, still small for a bobcat, but sleek and strong. A perfect mix of wild spirit and gentle soul. Her new enclosure had climbing branches, nooks, and space to roam, but she always had visiting rights with Bailey. The staff even installed a special secure cat door so she could go to him whenever she wished. Sarah often watched them together, her heart full. Bailey's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. A gift, delivered by the quiet paws of an orphaned Bobcat Cub. It was a story that defied logic, a story of connection between beings who had suffered, who had found solace in each other. One crisp morning with frost on the ground, Sarah stood quietly at Bailey's door. Willow was there, massaging his shoulder, her purr humming in the still air. Bailey sighed, eyes closed, completely at peace. When she finished, she rubbed her head under his chin. Bailey responded with a gentle lick to her tufted ears. "She remembers," Jed said, stepping beside Sarah. He'd aged too, but his eyes were brighter now. Willow, I mean. She remembers being cold and alone on that highway. All the warmth she longed for, she's giving it back now, with every purr, every paw. Sarah nodded, overcome. "She's healing more than just his body, Jed. Like Mrs. Albright said, she's teaching us how to feel safe again, how to trust, to let love in whatever form it takes." Bailey stirred, sensing them. He opened his eyes and gave a soft woof, his tail thumping gently. Willow looked up at Sarah, her luminous green eyes wise and steady. And in that moment, Sarah didn't see a wild creature. She saw a healer, a soul both tender and fierce. A tiny miracle. Willow, the trembling cub once found by the side of a highway, had found her purpose, and in doing so, had brought healing not only to an old golden retriever, but to everyone who'd cared for him. A healing that rippled far beyond the pine-scented sanctuary. A quiet, undeniable testament to the mysterious power of compassion. Bailey lived another 2 peaceful, love-filled years, with Willow always at his side, his furry little angel. His 4-pawed physician, and Willow, even as she matured into a magnificent adult, never stopped her gentle work. Her purr, a constant echo of comfort, drifted through the sanctuary, a legacy of warmth given and received.